Most people believe that the snacks they reach for between meals, those labeled as light, low-fat or heart-friendly, are harmless, even beneficial. But what if the foods you've trusted for years, the ones you believed were keeping your heart strong, are quietly working against you? Imagine this: you're sitting in your kitchen, reaching for a handful of something that claims to be good for your heart. Maybe some granola, a few rice cakes, or even a protein bar that promises clean energy. The packaging says all the right things: no added sugar, low cholesterol, zero trans fats. Yet inside your body, something entirely different begins to happen. Your arteries, the delicate highways that carry oxygen and nutrients to every cell, are under silent attack. Not by something dramatic or obvious, but by small, repeated choices that slowly, invisibly change the way your blood flows. It's a strange truth. The foods we trust the most are often the ones that betray us the quietest. Decades of marketing have convinced millions of people over 50 that healthy snacks are a form of self-care. But the science paints a different picture. In fact, many of these so-called heart-friendly snacks are engineered to taste good and appear healthy, while still triggering inflammation, oxidative stress, and arterial stiffness. These effects don't happen overnight. They build gradually, almost kindly, allowing you to believe that everything is fine until one day your doctor shows you numbers that make no sense: higher blood pressure, borderline cholesterol, early signs of plaque buildup. You wonder how that could be when you've been eating healthy. This is where awareness begins, not through fear but through understanding. Your arteries are not just tubes. They are living tissue, responsive to every single thing you eat. When you're in your 50s or beyond, those arteries have already carried you through decades of meals, habits, and choices. They've seen it all: the good, the bad, and the healthy-looking but harmful. Every bite leaves a mark, sometimes microscopic, sometimes lasting. Over time, those marks add up. The flexibility that once allowed your blood vessels to expand and contract easily begins to fade. Instead, they become stiffer, more reactive. That's when the real danger begins, when your body can no longer respond smoothly to changes in blood pressure or sugar spikes. What makes this so deceptive is that the snacks doing the most damage often appear innocent. Some are marketed as low-fat alternatives. Others are sweetened with so-called natural ingredients. The problem is not just what they contain, but how they interact with an aging body. After 50, your metabolism slows, your insulin sensitivity decreases, and your body's ability to clear inflammatory compounds weakens. That means foods that might not have harmed you at 30 can now start to quietly erode the health of your arteries. It's not just about fat or sugar anymore. It's about how these foods affect the inner lining of your blood vessels, the endothelium, which controls everything from circulation to inflammation. Picture that lining as a protective barrier, smooth and elastic. When it's healthy, blood flows effortlessly, delivering oxygen and nutrients where they're needed. But when that lining is irritated by excess sodium, refined carbs, artificial additives, or hidden sugars, it becomes rough and inflamed. Imagine a river running through a forest. When the water flows smoothly, everything downstream thrives. But when debris starts building up, the current slows, sediment gathers, and eventually the water becomes stagnant. That's exactly what happens in your arteries when you snack on the wrong healthy foods for too long. Many people assume damage to the arteries is always tied to obvious culprits: fried foods, red meat, sugary desserts. But here's the truth that surprises most patients: the damage often begins long before those indulgences. It begins with habits we repeat every day without noticing: the mid-morning granola bar, the flavored yogurt after lunch, the handful of baked chips during a late-night craving. Each one may seem harmless, but together, over weeks and years, they build a biochemical environment inside your body that promotes inflammation and oxidative damage. Science now shows that chronic, low-grade inflammation is one of the leading drivers of atherosclerosis, the slow hardening and narrowing of arteries. This inflammation doesn't come with pain or symptoms. It's silent, but it's measurable. Researchers can see it through markers like C-reactive protein and interleukins, both of which increase when your body is reacting to certain ingredients, even if you don't feel it. The problem is, The food industry knows how to hide these triggers behind words like whole grain, low sugar, or fortified with vitamins. You believe you're making a responsible choice, but the biochemistry inside your arteries tells another story. Imagine the surface of your arteries as a delicate film, constantly sensing and responding to what passes through it. When you eat snacks loaded with refined starches or hidden sugars, your blood sugar spikes sharply. Your body responds by releasing insulin, which helps push that sugar into your cells. But repeated spikes make your arteries less responsive. Over time, insulin itself starts to have inflammatory effects. It changes the way your arteries function, thickening their walls and reducing flexibility. Add a little excess sodium, even from sea salt or lightly salted snacks, and your blood pressure starts to creep upward. The combination is subtle but deadly. Elevated blood pressure on one side, inflamed arterial walls on the other. The most dangerous part? You don't feel any of it happening. There's no sudden pain, no clear sign that something is wrong. You may feel energetic, healthy, and active until one day you notice that your hands or feet get cold more often, or that climbing stairs feels slightly harder. These are the earliest whispers of reduced circulation. But by then, the process has already been unfolding quietly for years. When people over 50 start noticing changes like fatigue, memory lapses, or slight dizziness, they often blame aging. But what if aging isn't the cause, just the amplifier of accumulated mistakes? Your arteries age faster when they're exposed to constant spikes of sugar, salt, and chemical preservatives. These create what scientists call oxidative stress, a flood of unstable molecules that damage the cells lining your arteries. Think of it like rust on a metal pipe. Each little spot of rust may not seem like much, but over time it spreads, weakening the structure from within. That's what these healthy snacks do when eaten daily without awareness. They don't destroy you instantly, they slowly erode your vitality, one handful at a time. This is not meant to create fear, it's meant to awaken curiosity. Because once you understand the quiet chemistry of your arteries, you begin to see food differently. You stop trusting labels and start reading ingredients. You start noticing how your body feels after certain foods. Whether your heartbeat feels heavier, your energy dips, or your digestion feels off. These are all signals. Your body is always speaking. The question is, have you been listening? One of the most dangerous assumptions we make after 50 is believing that eating light automatically means eating right. For example, a snack labeled low fat often compensates for lost flavor with extra sugar or refined starch. That means even if the calorie count looks modest, the impact on your insulin and arteries can be severe. Similarly, snacks claiming to be made with whole grains often contain only traces of them, mixed with processed flour and syrups. Your body recognizes this difference immediately, even if your taste buds don't. This is why people who think they're eating well still struggle with cholesterol, triglycerides, or high blood pressure. It's not just the main meals that matter. It's the small, repeated snacks in between. Every bite is either protecting your arteries or wearing them down, and the older we get, the more these small choices matter. At 50, your arteries have been through 5 decades of meals, celebrations, stress, and recovery. They're resilient, yes, but not invincible. The endothelial cells that line your blood vessels regenerate more slowly now. That means every episode of inflammation, every spike of blood sugar, every sodium surge lasts longer. If you feed your body the wrong type of healthy snack every day, your arteries never get a chance to fully recover, and so the damage accumulates in silence. It begins microscopically. The lining becomes slightly uneven. Blood cells start to stick more easily. Over time, tiny clumps of cholesterol and calcium start lodging in those uneven spots. These are the seeds of plaque, the sticky buildup that narrows arteries and restricts blood flow. Once plaque forms, your body treats it as a wound, sending more immune cells to the site, but instead of healing, the area becomes inflamed. The more inflammation, the faster the plaque grows, and the more plaque, the more your arteries lose their natural flexibility. That's why someone can look perfectly healthy on the outside, yet have arteries that function like those of someone 20 years older. The truth is, your arteries tell the story of your habits. They remember every late-night snack, every light cookie, every spoonful of sweetened yogurt. And while you can't erase the past, you can absolutely change the future of that story by understanding what's really happening now. That's what this journey is about. Not judgment, not restriction, but awareness. You deserve to know which foods that claim to be your allies are, in reality, your quietest enemies. Because once you see the truth, once you understand what's been happening inside your own body, everything about your choices begins to change. You start eating not just to fill time, but to protect life. The first step is realizing that healthy doesn't always mean safe. Some of the most dangerous foods for your arteries are the ones that sound the most harmless. And the longer you've trusted them, the more important it is to take a closer look. Because your body, even now, has the power to heal. The arteries you've built through years of habits can adapt. They can soften again. But first, you have to see what's been hiding beneath the label. That awareness, gentle, honest, and empowering, is where everything begins. When people hear the phrase damaged arteries, they often imagine something catastrophic. A sudden heart attack, a stroke, a medical emergency that comes out of nowhere. But in truth, arterial damage almost never begins with a crisis. It begins quietly, invisibly, and most often in the kitchen. It begins with choices that seem reasonable, safe, even smart. The irony is painful. The very foods marketed to help you protect your heart are often the ones setting the stage for its decline. Let's take a closer look at how this deception works, because understanding it is the only way to undo its effects. The modern food industry is a master of illusion. It knows how to dress up a problem so it looks like a solution. It knows that after 50, your priorities change. You care about your health, your energy, your longevity. You're not chasing flavor anymore. You're chasing peace of mind. So when you see a snack labeled heart-healthy, low-fat, or made with whole grains, it feels like reassurance. You believe that choice is a step toward safety, but inside those words lies the same chemistry that doctors see in arterial scans every single day: gradual inflammation, insulin spikes, and oxidative stress. To grasp how these healthy snacks damage arteries, you have to understand the delicate balance your circulatory system depends on. Your arteries aren't just pipes. They're living organs made of layers of cells that communicate with your heart and immune system. Every time you eat, they react. The endothelium, that inner layer, releases nitric oxide, a gas that keeps blood vessels relaxed and prevents clots. It's your natural protection system. But certain foods, especially those high in refined carbs and hidden sugars, block this process. When you snack on low-fat cookies or fruit-flavored yogurt, your blood sugar jumps quickly. That surge forces your pancreas to release insulin, which then suppresses nitric oxide production. Without enough nitric oxide, your arteries can't dilate properly. They become slightly more rigid. Your blood pressure inches higher. The damage is microscopic at first, but it's cumulative. Now, add to that the ingredients that extend shelf life: hydrogenated oils, preservatives, artificial sweeteners. These compounds introduce what scientists call oxidative stress. Inside your arteries, they trigger the production of free radicals, unstable molecules that tear through cells like sparks in dry grass. Your body fights back with antioxidants, but as you age, that defense weakens. The sparks outnumber the shields, and slowly, inflammation becomes your body's default state. That inflammation thickens the arterial walls and makes cholesterol more likely to stick. This is why someone can avoid fast food, never smoke, and still end up with arterial plaque by 60. It's not about obvious bad habits. It's about consistent small ones. It's the healthy snack before bed, the natural granola in the morning, the energy bar after a walk. You think you're nourishing your body, but what you're really doing is feeding the slow fire of inflammation. Here's what most people don't realize. The human body was never designed for the kind of constant snacking our culture promotes. For thousands of years, humans ate meals with long periods of rest in between. That rhythm gave the body time to stabilize blood sugar and repair arterial tissue. But today, most people eat 5 to 6 times a day, often grazing mindlessly. That means your arteries are never truly at rest. They are constantly responding, to sugar, to sodium, to processed oils. Each reaction adds strain, like bending a paperclip again and again until it breaks. Even worse, the illusion of health in these snacks makes people consume them more often. Someone who wouldn't dream of eating potato chips daily will happily eat baked vegetable crisps, assuming they're better. But those crisps are often fried in refined oils that oxidize quickly, producing compounds that irritate the arterial lining even more than traditional chips. The packaging may say kale, quinoa, or chia, but the dominant ingredient is still starch. The result? A slow-burning process that hardens arteries while leaving you completely unaware. Science has a name for this kind of slow damage: endothelial dysfunction. It's the earliest stage of arterial disease, long before cholesterol becomes a problem. Studies show that people who consume processed snacks high in refined carbs or industrial oils have lower endothelial function within hours of eating. That means their arteries temporarily lose flexibility, their blood flow slows, and micro tears begin to form. If this happens once in a while, your body heals. But if it happens every day, 3 or 4 times a day, your arteries never get a chance to recover. Think about that for a moment. Imagine your blood vessels like rubber bands. When you're young, they stretch and rebound effortlessly. By 50, they've stretched millions of times, and their elasticity depends entirely on what you feed them. Each healthy but inflammatory snack, every bit of hidden sugar or oxidized oil, makes that rubber band a little stiffer. Over months and years, the stiffness becomes permanent. That's when you start feeling subtle signs: colder hands and feet, slower recovery from exercise, occasional lightheadedness when standing up too fast. Those are not just random age-related symptoms. They are the body whispering that circulation isn't what it used to be. Now let's look at one of the most misleading categories of all: low-fat or light snacks. When fat is removed from food, flavor disappears. To make up for it, manufacturers add sugar, starch, or salt. The label looks impressive: fewer calories, less fat, but the trade-off is metabolic chaos. The moment you eat it, your blood sugar surges, then crashes. Those fluctuations trigger cravings and fatigue, leading you to eat more. Meanwhile, your insulin stays elevated, pushing your body into fat storage mode and promoting inflammation. This is the perfect storm for arterial stress: high insulin, high inflammation, low nutrient density. The body can handle stress in short bursts, but not constantly. After 50, your resilience window narrows. Hormonal changes make your blood vessels more reactive. The same sodium content that barely affected you at 30 can now raise your blood pressure for hours. The same sugar that once gave you energy now creates fatigue. Your cells simply don't process fuel the same way anymore. And that's why awareness matters. Not fear, not guilt, but understanding how your biology has changed and how to adapt with it. There's another subtle danger: the word natural. Many snack bars and fruit bites boast natural sweetness, often from honey, agave, or concentrated fruit juice. These sound harmless, even wholesome, but chemically your body sees them as sugar. Agave, in particular, contains more fructose than high-fructose corn syrup. Fructose doesn't raise blood sugar directly, but it floods your liver, converting into triglycerides, the fatty particles that circulate in your blood and contribute to arterial plaque. So, while your glucose meter may look fine, your arteries are quietly accumulating damage. It's a slow suffocation of circulation disguised as wellness. What makes all this worse is repetition. One snack doesn't change your health, but a lifetime of small daily doses does. Scientists now describe this as dietary accumulation effect. It's not about overeating, it's about overexposing your arteries to triggers that prevent healing. You might think of it like sun exposure. One afternoon in the sun won't hurt you, but daily unprotected exposure adds up until one day you see the damage. Arteries work the same way. Every processed snack, every sugar spike, every sodium hit adds a tiny layer of stress until the structure gives way. It's easy to dismiss this because the feedback isn't immediate. When you smoke, you cough. When you drink too much, you feel it. But when you eat the wrong snacks, nothing screams at you. There's no instant signal of danger, just a quiet biological shift repeated thousands of times until the symptoms finally surface. That's why doctors call it the silent progression. By the time you feel it, the process has already been unfolding for years. Yet there's another side to this truth, one that brings hope instead of despair. Because just as your arteries remember harm, they also remember healing. When you stop exposing them to these daily irritants, they begin to recover almost immediately. Within weeks of improving your diet, the endothelial cells regain some flexibility. Blood flow improves. Inflammation markers drop. Patients report clearer thinking, warmer extremities, steadier energy. It's not magic, it's biology. The body wants to heal. It just needs the interference to stop. But to stop, you must first identify the enemy. And that means questioning what you've been told. You must look beyond labels, beyond calorie counts, beyond trends. Because the truth is, no single nutrient defines a healthy snack. It's the combination. Sugar with starch, sodium with processed oil, sweetness with artificial flavoring that turns harmless into harmful. The body can handle one insult at a time, but when they arrive together, every system in your body is forced into defense mode, and when defense becomes constant, disease follows. As you sit here listening, maybe you're thinking about the foods in your pantry, the ones that seemed like the right choice, the multigrain crackers, the granola clusters, the protein bars, maybe even the dried fruit you keep in your bag for emergencies. They've been part of your daily rhythm for years, but what if those are the very things holding your heart back from feeling its best? It's not about guilt, it's about clarity. The choices you made were based on trust, and that trust was misplaced, not by you, but by those who sold you an illusion. The good news is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to notice patterns, how foods that come in packages often share the same ingredients, sugar under different names, refined oils, sodium enhancers. You start connecting the dots between how you feel and what you eat. That's the moment awareness becomes power. Because the same consistency that once caused damage can now be used for healing. Every small decision in the other direction, every whole unprocessed snack, every meal that stabilizes blood sugar instead of spiking it, becomes an act of repair. And that's what this part of the journey is really about, seeing what's been hiding in plain sight. Because the biggest risk to your arteries isn't one big mistake, it's the slow accumulation of small, well-intentioned ones. But now, for the first time, you know where to look. Imagine your arteries as a network of quiet highways, smooth, flexible, alive. Every time your heart beats, those highways expand just slightly, allowing the blood to surge through, feeding every organ, every cell, every thought. That expansion is a miracle in motion, and when it's healthy, you don't even notice it. But when your arteries begin to lose that flexibility, everything changes. The blood that once flowed freely starts to move with resistance. Your heart must push harder. The pressure builds. That resistance, invisible, silent yet persistent, becomes the seed of cardiovascular decline. And it all begins with what you eat, often in the smallest, most innocent moments of your day. When you snack on something labeled healthy, your mind relaxes. You believe you're doing the right thing. But deep inside, a chemical story begins to unfold. The moment the food enters your system, enzymes start breaking it down into glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids. Ideally, these components are absorbed smoothly, released gradually and used efficiently. But many healthy snacks, those that rely on processed grains, sweeteners, and refined oils, flood your bloodstream with an excess of glucose all at once. Your pancreas scrambles to produce insulin to manage it. For a while, your body copes. But over years of repeated exposure, those insulin spikes begin to wear down the sensitivity of your cells. You become less efficient at processing sugar. More of it remains in your bloodstream, reacting with proteins and lipids to form compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. AGEs are aptly named. They literally age your arteries. They bind to the walls of blood vessels, stiffening them, reducing elasticity, and triggering chronic inflammation. Think of it like a slow internal caramelization, the same browning process that happens when sugar meets heat. Inside your body, that browning stiffens tissue, making it less responsive. And once that process starts, it feeds on itself. The stiffer the arteries become, the more pressure your heart needs to pump blood through them. The more pressure, the greater the damage to the delicate endothelium. Over time, those tiny injuries invite cholesterol and calcium to settle in the cracks, forming plaque. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens quietly, invisibly, one snack at a time. The next layer of this story is oxidation, another silent threat. Every cell in your body needs oxygen to produce energy, but oxygen by nature is reactive. When you eat foods high in refined oils, like those found in baked chips, granola bars, and heart-healthy trail mixes, your body produces more unstable molecules called free radicals. These free radicals react with LDL cholesterol, transforming it into a sticky, inflammatory version that easily clings to the artery walls. That's what makes cholesterol truly dangerous, not the cholesterol itself, but what it becomes when exposed to oxidative stress. It's like smoke residue on a white wall. The wall wasn't dirty until the smoke stuck to it. This is the physiological reality of what happens when you trust the wrong healthy snack. Every bite creates a chain reaction of small changes in blood sugar, in inflammation, in oxidative balance. You can't see it, but your body feels it. You might notice subtle signs, feeling tired after eating, craving sweets even after a light snack, mild bloating, or slight brain fog. Those aren't random symptoms. They're your body's way of signaling imbalance. Each symptom is a whisper from your arteries, telling you that what looks healthy might not be helping. Now let's talk about another hidden factor, sodium. For decades, the food industry has used salt not just for taste, but as a preservative and texture enhancer. Even snacks marketed as low sodium often contain just enough to raise your blood pressure slightly with each serving. As we age, our kidneys become less efficient at excreting sodium. What doesn't get flushed out stays in circulation, pulling water into your blood vessels, increasing volume, and pushing against arterial walls. That constant internal pressure accelerates wear and tear. It's not dramatic, but it's relentless. Each day of elevated pressure chips away at arterial integrity, especially when combined with inflammation and oxidative stress. Some people argue, but it's only a handful of nuts or a small bar. How bad could it be? The answer depends on what's been done to those foods before they reach your hand. Take roasted nuts, for example. In their raw form, they're rich in healthy fats and antioxidants. But once they're roasted in industrial seed oils, like soybean, canola, or sunflower oil, and coated with salt or flavoring, their chemical composition changes. The heat damages the fats, creating oxidized lipids that inflame the endothelium. So what could have been a nourishing snack becomes a subtle irritant. The same applies to veggie chips. They start as vegetables, but end as starch, oil, and salt. A perfect storm for arterial stress. One of the most misunderstood ingredients in so-called healthy snacks is fiber. Many snack bars boast about containing fiber, suggesting it supports digestion and heart health. But the type of fiber matters. Synthetic or added fibers like inulin or chicory root extract are not the same as natural fiber from whole foods. They may not behave the same way in your gut. In fact, some of them can ferment too quickly, causing bloating or inflammation in sensitive individuals. Real fiber, the kind found in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, binds to cholesterol and helps remove it from the body. But the processed versions often added to snacks are a cheap imitation, providing bulk without the benefits. What's most dangerous, however, is not any single ingredient. It's the combination. When sugar, refined starch, and oil meet in the same product, they create a metabolic storm. Your blood sugar spikes, your insulin surges, your triglycerides rise, and your arteries tighten. All of this happens in the span of an hour after eating. If you repeat this cycle 3 or 4 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, your body is constantly under biochemical pressure. It never returns to balance, and that's when damage becomes permanent. Now, think about how long this has been happening. For many people, this pattern begins in their 40s, sometimes earlier. By 50 or 60, that's 10 or 20 years of quiet damage. It's no wonder that heart disease remains the #1 cause of death in people over 50. Not because of one bad decision, but because of millions of tiny ones that went unnoticed. You might remember years of low-fat diets where people avoided butter but loaded up on crackers and light yogurt. The intention was good, but the science was incomplete. We now know that the removal of fat led to an explosion of sugar and refined carbohydrates in the diet, the very things that harm arteries most. And here's the heartbreaking part. Many people did everything they were told. They ate responsibly. They followed the labels. They avoided fried foods and sweets. Yet their arteries still narrowed, their blood pressure rose, their cholesterol climbed. The system failed them, not because they were careless, but because they were misled. The human body was never designed to thrive on artificial replacements for real food. It was designed to recognize and process nutrients from the earth, not from factories. The truth about these healthy snacks isn't meant to induce fear. It's meant to restore trust in your body's natural wisdom. Your arteries know how to heal, but they can only do so in the absence of constant irritation. When you eat whole foods, unprocessed nuts, fresh fruit, vegetables, lean proteins, your blood sugar rises gradually, your insulin remains steady, and your endothelium stays calm. Nitric oxide flows freely, keeping your arteries open and flexible. The contrast is dramatic, even measurable. Studies show that switching from processed snacks to whole food alternatives can improve endothelial function in just 2 weeks. That means better circulation, lower blood pressure, and reduced inflammation, all without medication. But the healing begins only when you stop the damage, and to stop it you must recognize the signs. The fatigue after a healthy snack, the subtle swelling in your ankles after a salty treat, the restless sleep after something sweet before bed. These are the early signals of imbalance, not signs of aging, but of chemistry out of alignment. If you learn to listen to these cues, you regain control long before disease takes hold. There's a quiet tragedy in the way we've learned to eat. This dependence on convenience. This faith in marketing. But there's also a quiet hope in realizing that the body, even at 50, 60, 70, never stops responding to care. The arteries that have carried you this far are not beyond repair. The damage that built up over decades can be slowed, softened, even reversed. It starts with one decision: to stop believing the labels and start believing the science. The science is clear. Your arteries react not to what food promises, but to what it contains. Every bite is a conversation between chemistry and life. You can't change the past, but you can absolutely rewrite what happens next. Because the truth is, your arteries are listening. Every meal you eat from this moment forward tells them what kind of future you want to live in. The first thing to understand about healing your arteries is that the body never truly gives up on you. No matter how many years you've spent unknowingly eating the wrong foods, your system is always trying to restore balance. Even when inflammation is high, even when the arteries have stiffened, your body continues its quiet work of repair. It replaces damaged cells, clears away debris, and strives to keep your blood flowing. But for it to succeed, it needs cooperation, and that begins with the simplest shift: choosing real nourishment over manufactured convenience. The snacks that slowly damage your arteries do so because they keep your body in a constant state of defense. To reverse that, your goal isn't restriction, it's restoration. You're not punishing your body for past mistakes. You're giving it space to heal. And that healing begins the moment you stop feeding the silent fire. So what does real nourishment look like for someone over 50? It starts with foods that speak your body's language, ingredients that your cells recognize, digest, and use efficiently. When you eat something natural and whole, your body responds with calm. Your blood sugar rises gently, your insulin stays balanced, your arteries relax. That's the difference between a body at war and a body at peace. Take something as simple as fruit. Many people fear fruit because it contains sugar, but the sugar in whole fruit is packaged with fiber, water, and antioxidants. That means it's released slowly into your bloodstream, preventing the sugar spikes that damage arteries. Compare that to dried fruit or fruit snacks, concentrated, stripped of fiber, loaded with preservatives. One nourishes your cells, the other irritates them. The difference is not just nutritional, it's chemical. When you eat whole fruit, the antioxidants help neutralize free radicals. When you eat processed fruit snacks, the opposite happens. Oxidation increases. Then there's fat, another misunderstood nutrient. For decades, fat was vilified as the cause of heart disease, leading people to avoid it at all costs. But science has evolved. We now know that healthy fats, especially those from sources like avocado, olive oil, flax seeds, and nuts, actually protect your arteries. They reduce inflammation, lower LDL oxidation, and improve the flexibility of your blood vessels. The key is to choose fats in their natural state, not the industrial versions created in factories. When you see words like hydrogenated or vegetable oil blend, that's a sign of processed fat, the kind that inflames your arteries instead of soothing them. Protein plays a similar role in recovery. As you age, muscle mass naturally declines, and protein becomes essential not just for strength but for vascular health. Amino acids like arginine and cysteine, found in fish, eggs, legumes, and seeds, help your arteries produce nitric oxide, the molecule that keeps blood vessels relaxed and open. Many people over 50 unknowingly eat less protein than they need, which slows healing and makes inflammation harder to control. By adding a little more quality protein to each meal, you're giving your body the building blocks it needs to repair itself from the inside out. But nutrition alone isn't the whole story. Your arteries also respond to rhythm, the pattern of how and when you eat. Remember, constant snacking keeps your body in a perpetual metabolic state. Every bite triggers insulin. Every insulin spike resets the healing clock. When you give your body breaks between meals, even short ones, it shifts into repair mode. This process, called metabolic rest, allows your arteries to restore nitric oxide levels, reduce oxidative stress, and clear out old cellular waste. That's why doctors now emphasize mindful eating and spacing out meals, especially after 50. You're not depriving yourself. You're giving your body time to breathe. Hydration is another overlooked ally. Water doesn't just quench thirst. It thins the blood, improves circulation, and helps your kidneys flush out excess sodium. Even mild dehydration can make your arteries contract and your blood pressure rise. Many people mistake thirst for hunger and reach for snacks when what their body really wants is water. A simple habit, drinking a glass of water before eating, can make a remarkable difference. It cools the internal inflammation that constant snacking can stoke. There's also the question of balance, not just in food but in lifestyle. Stress, sleep, and movement all shape the health of your arteries. Chronic stress, for instance, floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline, tightening blood vessels and raising blood pressure. Poor sleep interferes with blood sugar regulation, making your arteries more sensitive to damage. And inactivity weakens circulation, allowing plaque to build more easily. But when you walk daily, sleep deeply, and manage stress through calm rituals like breathing, stretching, or quiet reflection, you're signaling safety to your cardiovascular system. The arteries soften, inflammation drops, and blood flow becomes smooth again. If you were to visualize what happens during this healing process, imagine your arteries like a garden path after a storm. The ground is muddy, debris scattered, small cracks formed along the edges. But as the sun returns and the gardener clears the leaves, the path begins to dry and strengthen again. That's what your body does when you change what you feed it. Within weeks, the inflammation subsides, the micro tears start to heal, the plaque becomes more stable and less likely to rupture. Your blood begins to flow more freely, delivering oxygen and life to every corner of your body. It's not just physical, it's emotional too. When your circulation improves, your energy lifts, your thinking becomes sharper, you sleep better, you feel lighter, not just in body but in spirit. Many people over 50 who make these changes describe it as waking up from a long sleep, realizing that fatigue, stiffness, and mood swings weren't inevitable parts of aging, but signs of imbalance. When those signs fade, vitality returns. But let's be realistic, change takes patience. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. The body doesn't heal overnight. The damage that took decades won't vanish in a week, but every single day that you choose better nourishment, your arteries respond. They adapt, they rebuild, and even if progress feels invisible, it's happening beneath the surface. It's also important to remember that healthy eating doesn't mean eating bland or joyless food. In fact, the most healing foods are often the most flavorful. Herbs, spices, colorful vegetables, rich oils, fresh fruits. These ingredients are loaded with phytonutrients, compounds that fight inflammation and support arterial health. Turmeric, garlic, cinnamon, and ginger, for example, are natural anti-inflammatories. Olive oil contains polyphenols that protect the endothelium. Berries are rich in anthocyanins that improve blood flow. These aren't exotic supplements, they're everyday ingredients that, when used intentionally, become medicine in disguise. Let's take garlic as an example. Studies have shown that aged garlic extract can reduce arterial stiffness and slow the progression of plaque buildup. It works by boosting nitric oxide and improving the balance between good and bad cholesterol. Similarly, dark leafy greens like spinach and kale are rich in nitrates, natural compounds that your body converts into nitric oxide. Even small daily portions can make a measurable difference in circulation. This is what healing through food really means, not following fads, but returning to the wisdom of nature. You don't need a complicated diet plan or an expensive detox. You need awareness and consistency. Start by observing what happens in your body when you eat certain foods. How does your energy shift? How do you sleep? How does your mood feel afterward? These are your body's feedback mechanisms. When you eat something nourishing, you feel grounded and alert. When you eat something inflammatory, you feel sluggish and tense. Listening to those signals is more powerful than any label or diet rule. Many people discover, once they start eating cleaner, that their cravings begin to fade. That's because cravings are often a symptom of imbalance. The body seeking energy or pleasure it's missing elsewhere. When your blood sugar stabilizes and your hormones balance, those urges lose their grip. You stop needing constant snacks because your body feels satisfied and secure again. That's when true health begins to feel effortless, and the benefits extend far beyond your arteries. Improved circulation enhances everything: digestion, cognition, skin, even sexual vitality. When your blood flows freely, your body thrives. Your cells receive more oxygen, your organs function more efficiently, and your energy levels remain steady throughout the day. You no longer live at the mercy of fatigue or cravings. You live from a place of quiet strength. That's the ultimate relief, realizing that health isn't lost, it's just buried under habits that no longer serve you. Once you uncover it, you start to feel a sense of control again, not the anxious kind that comes from restriction, but the peaceful kind that comes from understanding. You realize that every meal is an opportunity to heal, that every choice is a message of respect to your body. And when you treat your body with that kind of respect, it responds with loyalty. Healing your arteries isn't about avoiding food, it's about rediscovering it. Real flavors, real textures, real nourishment, the kind that connects you back to life itself. Because what your arteries need most is not fear or perfection, it's consistency, love, and care expressed through daily choices. And when those choices become your new normal, something extraordinary happens. Your body begins to trust you again. Your arteries relax, your energy returns. Your heart, once burdened, begins to beat with quiet confidence. That's the feeling of relief, not just physical, but deeply emotional. The kind that reminds you that health was never about what you lost. It was about what you could restore. There's a quiet transformation that happens when you stop living in reaction to your health and start living in awareness of it. It doesn't happen in a moment. It happens in hundreds of subtle decisions. The ones that once felt meaningless, now charged with purpose. You wake up and pour a glass of water before anything else. You walk a little longer after breakfast. You read the labels that you used to ignore. And one day, without realizing it, you feel lighter. Not because you've lost weight or followed a diet, but because the burden of uncertainty is gone. You finally understand what your body has been trying to tell you all along. Your arteries, those silent highways of life, begin to soften again. Their walls, once inflamed and rigid, start to recover their natural flexibility. Your heart doesn't need to work as hard to push blood through them. Your energy stabilizes. Your thinking sharpens. It's as if someone quietly turned the volume back up on life. You begin to sense vitality in places you hadn't noticed for years. A steadier heartbeat, warmer hands, easier breathing. These are the physical echoes of deeper healing. What's extraordinary about the human body is its resilience. Even after years of mistreatment, it never stops trying to restore balance. The moment you remove what harms it, it begins to rebuild. Arteries that have been inflamed for decades can improve their function in weeks. The blood pressure that has crept upward for years can begin to settle. The inflammation that clouded your mind and drained your energy can fade. Your body was never your enemy. It was only responding to the environment you gave it. When you choose real food, fresh, unprocessed, alive, you create an environment of safety inside your body. Your arteries relax, your hormones stabilize, your immune system stops fighting you, and the reward is not just physical health, but peace. There's something profoundly calming about knowing that your choices are no longer working against you. You stop fearing food. You stop fearing your own reflection. You begin to trust life again. This journey isn't about perfection or discipline. It's about alignment. The more aligned you are with what your body needs, the less effort it takes to feel well. The need for constant willpower disappears, replaced by instinct. You stop reaching for healthy snacks because you no longer crave the comfort they once promised. Instead, you crave what feels real: a crisp apple, a handful of almonds, a warm cup of herbal tea. These are no longer obligations, they're acts of kindness. There's also an emotional layer to this healing, one that few people talk about. For many, food has been more than nourishment. It's been a companion, a reward, a form of escape. But when you begin to eat with awareness, something shifts. You start to notice when you're eating out of habit instead of hunger. You start to see the patterns: the late-night snack when you're lonely, the energy bar when you're stressed. And instead of judgment, you meet those moments with compassion. You begin to understand that real healing means caring for the person behind the habit, not punishing them. With time, that compassion extends beyond food. You start to move differently, not out of guilt, but out of gratitude. A walk becomes a way of saying thank you to your body for carrying you. Sleep becomes sacred, not optional. You breathe slower, deeper. You start to see health not as a project to be managed, but as a relationship to be nurtured. And that's what vitality truly is. Not the absence of disease, but the presence of connection. Connection between mind and body, between habit and awareness, between past mistakes and present forgiveness. You realize that every time you choose nourishment over convenience, you're not just protecting your arteries, you're rewriting your story. You're proving that age doesn't mean decline, that your best years aren't behind you, and that health is not a privilege, it's a partnership. Science supports this hope. Research shows that even modest lifestyle changes, a balanced diet, regular movement, reduced processed food, can reduce cardiovascular risk by more than half in people over 50. The same studies reveal that those who make these changes also report better mood, sharper cognition, and higher quality of life. In other words, healing your arteries doesn't just add years to your life, it adds life to your years. This is the true message of empowerment. You are not at the mercy of your biology. You are in dialogue with it. Your body listens to everything you say, through food, through rest, through thought. And when you begin to speak its language again, it answers with vitality. That's not wishful thinking. That's physiology in harmony. Think back for a moment to all the years of mixed messages, conflicting advice and marketing noise. You've been told to fear fat, then sugar, then carbs, then salt. You've been told to count calories, skip meals, and snack constantly. Each new rule created confusion, and confusion creates disconnection. But now, with a little clarity, you begin to see how simple it really is. Real food heals. Consistency protects. Awareness transforms. This understanding doesn't just heal arteries. It heals the relationship you have with yourself. It teaches patience. It reminds you that progress is not measured by numbers, but by how deeply you feel at home in your body. It reminds you that vitality is not about youth. It's about presence. When you eat with awareness, you become more present, not just at the table, but in your entire life. There's a moment that arrives when you realize that taking care of your health isn't about avoiding death. It's about honoring life. That's the moment when you feel your priorities shift. You no longer chase quick fixes or superfoods. You simply return to what your body has always known: rhythm, balance, simplicity, a little movement every day, a meal made from real ingredients, a few minutes of stillness. This is how you reclaim health, not through extremes, but through grace. Imagine for a moment sitting at your kitchen table years from now. The morning light falls gently on your hands. Your heartbeat feels strong, steady, unhurried. You breathe deeply, easily. You remember this moment, the one when you decided to take back control. And you realize it was never about fear of illness. It was about love. Love for the life still ahead of you. Love for the people who depend on you. Love for the quiet miracle of your own body. Still working, still healing, still alive. That's the true power of awareness. It turns fear into wisdom. It turns confusion into clarity. It turns age into advantage. Because when you reach 50, 60, 70, you don't lose strength. You gain perspective. You understand that every choice matters, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. You've earned the right to know better, to do better, to live better. So as you move forward, carry this truth with you. Your arteries are not a ticking clock. They are a living story. Every heartbeat is a chance to write a new chapter. Every meal is a chance to begin again. And if you listen closely, beneath the noise of habit and fear, you'll hear something beautiful. The steady, grateful rhythm of a body that never stopped believing in you. This is what empowerment feels like. Not urgency, not anxiety, but peace. The kind that comes when you realize that your health was never out of reach. It was always waiting for you to come home.